Here we go. Week 3, keys to victory. What the San Francisco 49ers have to do to beat the Los Angeles Rams. Get back in the win column. Get back on track. And this is the week. It's Brandon Aiyuk time. Wide receiver 1. Hufanga back. A whole lot more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love all of our everydayers out there, and welcome to all the new listeners this football season. Seeing a lot of new folks out there jumping in and joining us on Locked On 49ers Daily. Thanks for making us your first listen. Make sure you subscribe. Hit the like button while you're here. If you're on YouTube, let us know you're stopping by. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you are listening to this podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play just $5. All right, Croc, here we go. The Los Angeles Rams. I think it's a good week for the 49ers to get back on track. Levi's South, a.k.a. SoFi Stadium, in week number 3, an afternoon game. You're not traveling to the Midwest. You're not playing the 10 a.m. kickoff time. So those are good things for the San Francisco 49ers here. The bad news, Deebo out, Christian McCaffrey still out. But that leaves some opportunity for the 49ers, some guys to step up for the 49ers, and namely Brandon Aiyuk. So I want to talk wide receivers to start this episode. And by the way, did you catch the I can't even remember what the name of the podcast is, the new Deebo Samuel podcast? It's a Cleats and Conversation, Cleats and Convos. Is that right?
I didn't catch it in its entirety, but there were enough of the videos kind of floating around the old X machine, Twitter machine, and I got the gist of it. And I don't know if I'll be tuning in. Now listen, you and I remember when we first started, people hated when I joined the show. And they loved hearing Peacock. They did not love hearing
5-star rating. I had a 5.0 rating, which is unheard of in the podcast industry. Croc came in and took it all the way down to 4.8.
Yeah. So people didn't quite care for that. But then obviously they grew on like we grew with each other. Our dynamic, understanding the back and forth, how to talk. And, since then, it got a lot better. So I will give it time. But one thing is very clear. Deebo, entering this realm of just a different professionalism, has to learn how to podcast. And that's something that you and we've learned how to, you prior to me even joining the show, just knowing how to podcast, knowing how to talk to people, knowing how to be engaging, knowing when you have to dig deeper for a take or dig deeper for a conversation, knowing when you're carrying something out too long. I know I have a bad habit of doing that at times. So I think, over time, this is something completely different than he's probably ever done. It's probably going to take time for him to get good at it. So I'll give it time. Some guys, it's natural for them. I would say like the Kelsey brothers, they're just pretty damn good. And they've just been good.
Yeah. They're hams, right? In fact, I think we got some like oversaturation of the Kelsey brothers. I could probably do with a little bit less of them, but they're great with it, right? And that's why you want to put them in your TV commercial. George Kittle's the same way. Like, you want to put them in your TV commercial because they're just like automatic. You turn on the camera and they're like, yeah, I'm performing, man.
Now Kittle's someone I feel like if you were to say who on the 49ers should have a podcast, let's get George Kittle. Yeah. Kittle and his wife, because Warner has one. See, Warner's podcast, Warner has one. What was it called? Warner's House. Mm-hmm. It's pretty good. Him and his wife, and or him and his wife, I believe. Like in the engagement and everything's great. I think Kittle would be really good because they have more of that outspoken personality. Aiyuk doesn't talk a lot, so you put Aiyuk in a mic in front of him and expect him to be this outgoing. Now, maybe he talks a lot in his personal life, right, but he doesn't talk. He's not this, like, you're not going to get a lot out of him like you would George Kittle.
Yeah, so, he's not like Chad Ochocinco or something, right? He's not.
Right. That's just his big personality.
You think, wide receiver, contract holdout. He's probably a diva. He's probably saying all kinds of great stuff. And to be honest with you, when I heard Brandon Aiyuk on that episode, And again, like you, I only heard the clips, and I want to talk about the best team in the NFL comment for the last few years from Deebo Samuel. But Brandon Aiyuk was asked about the last game, and I think what he wants to say is not what he says either, because he knows he's like, okay, I can't say the thing I want to say, which is you should throw me the ball more. Why am I not getting the ball more? I pay me 30. He's like, I can't remember what he said. He was like, we'll didn't go great. We're gonna get it. Then we're gonna win the next one or something. It was like a very like coach speak answer. It's very short. I think he probably wanted to say some other stuff, and he like knows he's on a podcast, and so he can't say actually what he really wants to say anyway.
Yeah, so Deebo is one that I feel like will be more outgoing the more comfortable he gets. I've seen him on other podcasts. I mean, he's been on with Kay Adams, and he is very opinionated. I remember the whole thing that blew up with Bradbury, and he's like trash. Like, I think we'll get more out of Deebo once he just truly learns how to podcast, which is different.
Man, we'll catch you on Sunday.
I guess.
It's always short and sweet with Deebo though too. So I don't know. Maybe they just need to shorten the podcast and let Deebo have these like one-liner one-offs. But one of his one-liners caught a lot of people's attention, and it was him saying that he thinks the 49ers have had the best team in the league the last few years, but they haven't won it. And I think a lot of people took that the wrong way, or maybe took it the right way and said, hey, Deebo, you can't say you're best team in the NFL and not have won it. You can't say you're already over the hump if you haven't hoisted that Lombardi yet. What do you think about that comment about him saying that the 49ers, the best team in the league, have already been the best team in the league for the last few years?
I think the 49ers have been the best team in the league. The best team in the NFL doesn't always win the trophy. That's like saying, oh, the best quarterback is the one with all the Super Bowls. And obviously we give it to, Tom Brady. But I bet if you ask opposing defenses, some like the toughest quarterback you've ever faced, they might say Aaron Rodgers. There might be, there might be some people that say Dan Marino. Like, man, Dan Marino, like he was tough. So it's not always the 100% best person in a given year that wins an MVP or wins the Super Bowl. But the 49ers, they've had some terrific football teams from top to bottom, roster loaded. But unfortunately for the 49ers, whether it was a couple of years ago, your quarterback gets hurt in the conference championship game. And well, now you go from being the best, feeling the best, to we're not the best now when we're fighting with one arm behind our back. And then you fast forward to the next year and you talk about last season in the Super Bowl. I've said it. A lot of people, the 49ers were the better team in that game. They were the better team heading into that game. Everyone said that was a down season for the Chiefs in the sense of just offensive productivity, kind of what they look like. It was up and down. Like, that wasn't the Chiefs that you were used to seeing, but they figured out how to win the game. And most people tell you, man, like you got to be better that day. You don't got to be better, 2 weeks prior, a month prior, for a majority of the year. Can we just be better on this day? And on that day, the Chiefs were better on that day, but I don't think that means that they were the better team. So a guy like Deebo Samuel saying, hey, I feel like we've been the better team. Well, a lot of people, that's why more times than not, have the highest odds to win the Super Bowl in Vegas.
The 49ers were favorites going into the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, they were the better team.
I would push back on saying the better team. If you want to say you were the best team in the NFC over the last few years, I think the 49ers have been the best team. I think they've proven that over and over again. They've lost some NFC championship games. They've won some, and they've been to the Super Bowl a couple times. The Chiefs are the best team in the league. They are.
I think that
they win. They've won multiple championships. They've beaten the 49ers multiple times. You can't say you're better than the Chiefs until you knock them off. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. But I think Deebo's saying is like, look, we're good enough to win. We just have to go win it now. And I think that's what he means. And I fully agree with him with that. The 49ers have a championship caliber team. The 49ers have a championship caliber team in week 3 without Christian McCaffrey, without Deebo Samuel. I think.
Here's what I think.
You got to execute it. And you can't lay an egg in the Super Bowl when you get there.
Here's what I think might be one of the bigger deciding factors. And this will just be the case until we're proven otherwise. I think Andy Reid's just a better coach than Kyle Shanahan. His team has been better prepared for situational football. He's been more aggressive when need be. I think it has to do more with that and those two guys going up against each other and being prepared for that moment than it has to do with the Chiefs being a better football team than the 49ers.
I mean, that's coaching is part of the team. So they're a better team.
Well, yeah, but you go into a maybe it's experience, but but again, if you just player for player and production that you got throughout the year, 49ers they had the better team. So I think that's what he's speaking to. He sees his team week in, week out, the practice and what it looks like, what they're doing, the vibes. Look, dude, we're the best team in the league. You kick teams' ass. We're the best team in the league. And then you go up against a team that when you walk on the field, man, we feel like we're better. But, man, I think that chunky guy with the Hawaiian shirt over there, he might just be a little bit better than our flat bill wearing coach that we have on our sideline. And that might be more the deciding factor. The fact that it started coming out that the Kansas City Chiefs were prepared for, like, even just, hey, if this goes into overtime, this is how we're going to attack it. And they prepared for it. And the 49ers didn't even know what the hell was going on. Like, you could be the better team, but if your coach and your preparation isn't as good, then you can find yourself losing a game that you should not be losing.
And the quarterback can help the coach look better too. And maybe that's the deciding factor. And I've always said it, coach, quarterback. That is the combination you need. If you're starting an NFL franchise, you got the coach and quarterback figured out, you're going to be in good shape. Buffalo Bills lost a lot of guys. They're in good shape because they got a coach and a quarterback. Look around the league, find the teams that have a great combo of coach and quarterback. They can figure the rest of it out. And the Chiefs have the best combination of coach and quarterback. So it makes them the best team, in my opinion. But the Niners can still win a Super Bowl. And top to bottom roster, is it better when you factor in every single position group? I think so, but that doesn't mean you're the best team. Niners got to still prove they're the best team and hoist that Lombardi. How do they get there? Starts with keys to victory in week 3 against the Los Angeles Rams. Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You've heard us talk so much about FanDuel, and there's a reason they are America's #1 sports book. It's because of offers like this. And hurry up, because it's almost over. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet just $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. And then at FanDuel, you can bet on your San Francisco 49ers to win the Super Bowl and finally hoist that Lombardi for the first time in 30 years. You can bet on Coach of the Year, Offensive Defensive Rookies of the Year. You can bet on all the weekly lines and tons of prop bets and every other sport that exists on the planet as well at FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. That is FanDuel.com. Okay, Croc. Key to victory #1 is Brandon Aiyuk. And he's the guy now. He's wide receiver 1 on this football team. There's no Christian McCaffrey. There's no Deebo Samuel. So I want to see 2 things with Brandon Aiyuk in this game. And we could speak to the idea that he's not getting open, which is, I think, false. Right, Croc? Over the first 2 weeks of the season, he might not be playing a full complement of snaps. He dropped a possible touchdown pass in week #1. He doesn't have huge production. Is that because he's not early enough in the progressions, or is that because he's not getting open?
That's the key right there. Early enough in the progressions. I'm glad you said that. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on. And we got to keep our ear to the ground, keep our ear to the streets so we know what to talk about on this show. A lot of 49er fans highly upset with Brandon Aiyuk. I think a lot of it is, bro, you got all this money. Where is the production? I would say point the finger at someone else. And this is why. One thing I learned about the separation stats that's floating around, right? It's like Brandon Aiyuk had the lowest separation grade or rate or whatever on the 49ers week 2, the lowest out of anybody. People are like, well, they're not getting open. But then come to find out, because first, well, hold on. I went and watched all 22. Is Brandon Aiyuk getting open? And I'm watching them. I'm like, Brandon is getting open. I'm like, open here, open here, open here. So I tweeted that out. I can't speak for everybody because I focused on Brandon Aiyuk, but he's clearly getting open. Like, there's plenty of plays where it's like large separation and the ball's not going to him. I also followed up with, I don't know the quarterback's progressions. So if he's looking right and he's not looking at Aiyuk on the backside, like that's not Aiyuk's fault, right? And that's not even Brock's fault. Like, this is my read. It says go here. You got Aiyuk open. I'm not going to get to him more times than not. All right. But I saw it there. The people responded. But Croc, this separation grade, look at this. Come to find out, this separation grade is predicated on passes to the target, to the receiver. So it doesn't account for every route that the receiver runs. It only accounts for the route the guy ran when the ball was actually thrown to him. All right, which the receiver can't control that. So in Brandon Aiyuk's case, even with the lowest separation grade, he caught 4 out of the 5 passes that were thrown at him. And the one that was missed was in the end zone, which he probably had the most separation out of any of his routes on passes thrown at him. All right. So there's that part. But then if you shout out to my guy KP put together this video, it's like almost 2 minutes long, of just Brandon Aiyuk just running open. So whose fault is it? It's not Brock, right? And you're only putting it on Brock if you're saying whatever he's seeing pre-snap or whatever he saw in this past game, pre-snap and post-snap didn't align, and then maybe he's supposed to go to Aiyuk and he didn't. He didn't get there. All right, and he went elsewhere. That's the only way you could put it on him. But I put it on Kyle Shanahan. And the reason why I put on Kyle Shanahan, and we'll see if things change this week with you maybe having to do more with him, which I just don't see. I don't see Kyle's philosophy and mindset shifting on his passing game. All right. But if Kyle says, you know what, I'm going to go away from what I do, which is, man, I got all these terrific weapons. Hey, we're just going to run this play. And the defense is going to dictate where this ball goes. And I trust in Brock to get the ball to the right place. So whether it's Brandon Aiyuk, Kyle Juszczyk, Juwan Jennings, I don't think Kyle really cares. Hey, just run it. And this guy, I think his offense is more plug and play than most people realize. It's just with certain guys in certain areas, you can maybe get more out of it, right? Like if a guy's just bigger, stronger, faster, maybe he could do a little bit more, but it doesn't matter if I have Brandon Aiyuk at the X or Juwan Jennings at the X. If you just run this post right here, the play concept is gonna work the same. And I think that's where they have a hard time understanding that. So it's not even so much about Brandon Aiyuk and his lack of production. It's Kyle doing things to ensure that Brandon Aiyuk is a part of the progression, which you started out saying.
Yeah, and this was the entire conversation about whether or not do you pay Brandon Aiyuk? Do you trade him? Is he valued that way to the 49ers to be a $30 million receiver? Because most of those guys are number one options on their team.
And what was our response to that? What was our answer to that question?
Well, maybe the 49ers haven't proven that they value and will utilize Brandon Aiyuk in that way. So why would you pay a guy that way if you're not going to utilize him in that way? And my argument for Brandon Aiyuk was more into the future post Deebo, post Christian McCaffrey, which already happened in week 3, Croc, which is where I'm at with Brandon Aiyuk. And look, if you're just going to treat him as a backside option, you're like, 1 and 2 aren't there. There's Aiyuk backside dig. Boom. That's where he gets a lot of his production as a backside player of a play. But I want to see screen passes. I want to see him in motion, isolating him to get him open, whip routes, return routes, catch and run stuff, deep balls down the field. I want to see him utilized in a way that he's already utilized, but also get the Deebo targets too. I want to see 15 targets for Brandon Aiyuk in this game. I want to see him get the first target of the game. I want to see him get the second target of the game. I want to see him get the ball handed to him. I want to see him have opportunities after the catch. I want to see volume for him. And this is sort of a little portal. We get to see what this might look like into the future. 2026, a highly paid wide receiver in Brandon Aiyuk as the number one, a highly paid quarterback in Brock Purdy. What's that passing game going to look like? What's that offense going to look like potentially without Deebo and Christian McCaffrey into the future? Who knows? Maybe without George Kittle too. And I want to see George Kittle get 10 targets in this game as well. But I want to see an offense where Brandon Aiyuk is featured, which we haven't seen a lot, despite his pretty good production being more of a backside player for the 49ers passing game. And specifically,
real quick, Peacock,
yeah.
I don't even think that he's a backside player. I think it's just he's only backside depending on how Brock Purdy pre-snap sees it. So there could be times where, hey, this is the route. You got this route. And then Brock comes out and looks and he says, oh, okay, the safety's here, linebacker's here. Okay, I should be able to hit Aiyuk here. Then Aiyuk turns into wide receiver 1 on that play. But then there could be times where if they show this and show that, then, okay, the ball should go to George Kittle on this play. I think it's more predicated on that than just Aiyuk is a backside or second read in the offense.
Well, I think a lot of times, I think what we saw last week, which is why Brian Flores had a really good game plan against Kyle Shanahan, is Kyle Shanahan, he's in the quarterback's ear. So he's telling Brock Purdy, even as they're going to the lines, okay, watch this, watch the save on this. It's usually, I think, the early reads are the ones that are getting the ball, and Kyle Shanahan designs who those early reads are supposed to, like who's supposed to be open on the play. And I think a lot of times Aiyuk is not the guy who's supposed to be open. He's like, watch this. We're going to really get, 44. We're going to get our fullback wide open on this play. We're going to get George Kittle wide open on this play. We're going to hit Deebo, let him catch and run. This play's designed. Most of the throws to running backs, people are talking about how, man, why aren't they giving the ball to Jordan Mason out of the backfield? He's standing there wide open on a play, and Brock is waiting and holding the ball, getting sacked or forcing something else down the field. Jordan Mason's right here. Most of the running back targets for Christian McCaffrey are designed running back targets. They're not just like check down throws to the running back. So that's why I was calling, it's maybe a bad shorthand for it. That's why I'm calling Aiyuk more of a backside player in the offense, because he doesn't get that stuff designed for him as much as the other players. And this week he has to. And going into the future, if you're going to pay him $30 million, you should have a plan to feature him.
So that's what you want to see. Is that what you expect to see?
I think this week I do expect to see that. Who else are you going to feature? Because the guys that get featured the most and have those auto targets, and they kind of need them in that way because they don't get open in the same way that a Brandon Aiyuk does, aren't on the field for the 49ers this week. So he better be featured. And if he's not featured now, when will Brandon Aiyuk ever be featured?
Great question.
More on the passing game and a couple of concepts I want to run by you. What's going on in the league? What happened to the 49ers on a 97-yarder? If the 49ers can pull that out for themselves as well in week 3 and beyond with Brock Purdy and Brandon Aiyuk most likely. And the rest of our keys to victory, Talanoa Hufanga on his way back, maybe making a debut for the 49ers this year in week 3. Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is sponsored by Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. With over 5 million active members, Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. It's not a big pool of players you're playing against. It's not a bunch of sharks in the pool you're playing against. It's just you against the stat projections at Prize Picks. All you do is you pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch those winnings roll in. For example, I would go more than on Aiyuk because I think he is going to be featured in this game, or else Kyle Shanahan might need to get his head examined. Prize Picks is the best way to get in on any of the action in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And Prize Picks also invented something called Flex Play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Just download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly to play with when you play just $5. That's code Locked On NFL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Okay, one more quick note on Aiyuk in the passing game. We'll get some other keys to victory. We'll talk Talanoa Hufanga, who's a key. And it kind of actually ties in because what did we see the Niners get beat with? It was that 2 deep safeties getting split on a 97-yard touchdown pass from Sam Darnold to Justin Jefferson in week 2. And that was the big play of the game, following the second biggest play of the game, which was the stop on the 4th down before that. And the Saints are kind of going crazy to start this year. And it didn't dawn on me at first until I was talking with Williamson on the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Subscribe daily right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And I was like, oh yeah, Clint Kubiak's the new offensive coordinator in New Orleans. And Derek Carr's suddenly the most efficient quarterback in the league. Alvin Kamara scoring touchdowns left and right. They're going crazy on offense. And so I'm watching this Saints game, and I'm like, wait a second. What is this? Wide receiver, deep post, splits the 2 deep safeties, 2-man route, max protect, Derek Carr, 70-yard touchdown bomb. Clint Kubiak. We saw the Shanahan tree coach, right? He was with the 49ers last year. We've seen it with Bobby Slowick. O'Connell's kind of a McVay Shanahan tree guy, right? He's dialing these things up. Croc, can we see that play? I'm talking about the short stuff, right? Design stuff for Brandon Aiyuk. Can we split the safeties with the deep post? Dagger concept, Yankee concept, whatever concept you want to throw out there. Max protect, 2-man route. Let's hit one too, Croc.
I mean, you have the guys to do it. And I think there's different ways to put guys in position to be able to do that and get more of a favorable matchup. You talk about some of the guys that are winning vertically down the field. They might have a little bit more speed than what the 49ers have on the edge. And when I say more speed, Aiyuk can run. Is Aiyuk a speedster like 22 from the Saints? He's like a 4.
Yeah. Rasheem Shaheed is the one that hit that.
Yeah, he's like 4.3 guy, right? Mm-hmm. Like he's a blazer. Justin Jefferson, while isn't a blazer, he is faster than the receivers the 49ers have. He was a 4.41 guy coming out of college. Like he could run.
Hell of a route runner. That little step to the corner before he hit the post too. Like the nuance of that route from Justin Jefferson kind of goes unnoticed sometimes. Hey, Niners do have a 4.3 guy in Jacob Cowing who might get more snaps with Deebo out.
But here's my thing. You don't even have to go with those guys. You just have to figure out how can we get a guy matched up to get the favorable look that we want. Use George Kittle. This is a guy that runs very well in the open field. You go back, 2019, running that corner post against the Packers, catching it, outrunning the safeties and defensive backs. Like he has that ability. So maybe it's not Aiyuk doing that exact thing, but if you want to say, you know what, maybe we get a linebacker or maybe a safety matched up on George Kittle and go max protect and do that, I think you can get the look and the results that you're looking for.
That's a huge one, Croc. We talked about this yesterday on the crossover with Doug from Locked On Rams. And by the way, we were talking about how you jumped on the podcast with me a couple years ago, Croc. People love you now, Croc, and people putting you on milk cartons because you were out a couple of podcasts. So the people love Eric Crocker. Like they're like, "Where's Crocky 209, man?" That's you're an important piece to this whole equation. George Kittle, yeah, the Niners have to take. Look, this is the matchup, and this is why the 49ers are going to win this game. The Rams are terrible on defense. Stopping the run. They have 5 linebackers, all undrafted free agents on their roster. Like Kyle Shanahan is going to feast run game, pass game in the middle of the field. The Rams are in big trouble. Traded their only good linebacker in Ernest Jones right before the season for some super strange reason. I don't know what they're doing there. They have no Cooper Kupp. They have no Puka Nacua. If the 49ers lose this game, I think the Niners are in trouble because they should go dominate the Los Angeles Rams, and for no other reason than just taking a huge advantage of the poor linebacker play from the Los Angeles Rams.
I think this game, a big piece of it, key to victory, I think has to be getting the run game going early on. They did a terrific job with Jordan Mason. He's running hard. There's been a lot of comparisons. Me and my buddies were talking about it, but there's been a lot of comparisons to Marshawn Lynch. I would say he's like the undrafted version of Marshawn Lynch. Like he ain't quite Marshawn, but he runs hard. He runs physical. He reminds me of Marion Barber. That's who he really reminds me of.
Marion the Barbarian.
Marion the Barbarian. Like that's who he looks like. They even wear the same number. Marshawn Lynch wore 24 as well, but they even wear the same number. But with the way he's running, how do you not get him the ball early and right now? You go back last week against the Vikings. I want to say this off the top of my head, 49ers went 3 and out. He did not get a carry on that first drive.
No, I think maybe Kyle Shanahan outsmarted himself a little bit with that. And I think Kyle Shanahan doesn't want to give Mason 28 carries. So he's like, well, we're going to have a lead and we're going to carry the ball a lot late. So let's throw for some points early and let's save him early. And I think that was kind of the idea. But my thing with Kyle Shanahan is like, okay, if you don't want to give one running back 28 carries, put another running back in for a few carries.
Right. Like there's other guys. There's Garendo. There's the Patrick kid. Like use somebody else.
Yeah, and Patrick Taylor. If you want the veteran route, Garendo's only had 1 carry in 2 games. He was on the field another time. They called a timeout in week 1, and the carry wasn't great. He kind of
I think he got put in the doghouse after that. He missed. He was supposed to be a little bit more patient
Yep.
and stretched that out. It opened up. Trent Williams kicked guys out.
Huge
The
hole.
other guys, they sealed it all for him, and
Yep.
he was a little too impatient. Funny thing, real quick, there's this meme floating around on Instagram, and it's like, would you rather take $1 million? They'll hand you $1 million, or get $10 million, but the caveat is you get 10 carries to get 5 yards. So on the NFL defense, you got an NFL offensive line, you get 10 carries. Can you pick up 5 yards? And I want people to see that play, because for everybody who thinks they're just going to get 5 yards on the NFL defense, when those guys are flowing and stuff like that, this is a guy that's 6'1", 220 pounds, runs a 4.3. And he couldn't even get past the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
And we're not fast enough. Like, that's the like, just to get to the edge, we can't run sideline to sideline. My guys are like, oh, just run stretch. You guys can't run stretch. Like, we're not fast enough at this age. So now it's like, well, am I strong enough to run between the tackles? And you want to get in there and mix in with you won't make it past 2 plays.
And here's the problem. If you run stretch and then you get hit behind the line, are you taking, now you have to gain 10 yards because you just lost 5 yards? So that's like, give me $1 million and I'll save myself from those hits too.
I think people don't understand how fast the game is until you're like right there at field level and you see Fred Warner, just how fast he's moving. And it's like Garendo couldn't get a yard.
My final key to victory, Croc, is welcome back. And as of the time of this recording, Talanoa Hufanga on track to get his first playing time of the 2024 season, 10 months from his torn ACL last November. And we're speaking of 2 high safeties. There you go. There's one of your safeties, and really sort of a heart and soul player. Kind of missed seeing Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw and how they play like absolute maniacs on defense. I think the 49ers have missed a little bit of that energy on the defensive side of the ball, aside from Fred Warner. So I think Talanoa Hufanga is a really welcomed addition this week. And it's not because of and I don't want to throw George Odom under the bus either. I thought he was really good for the most part. I don't want to throw Jair Brown under the bus either because of one great play that Justin Jefferson made, and and one big play, as big as it was. But I think just the energy of Talanoa Hufanga, the way he plays, will be really nice for the 49ers to get back. So solidify that secondary now with Talanoa Hufanga, and I like the way the guys have been covering underneath. And so it's a huge key for me to get him back and just get that energy back for the San Francisco 49ers and remind yourselves what kind of a team you are against the Rams.
Yeah, because you cannot let the Rams you can't let them get that false sense of confidence. You can't let them get a stop. Maybe, Matthew Stafford throws a touchdown to Robinson. Now all of a sudden they start feeling themselves. Then it's, let's get the run game going a little bit. Blake Corum, Kyron Williams. Like, you can't let them start feeling like that. You got to punch them in the mouth early, run the rock, make them feel defeated, hit a nice pass, get up 2 scores, and then from there start to pour it on. Because if the Rams start to get a sense that they could win this game, that's when the 49ers can potentially be in trouble. I expect 49ers to win by 2 scores. I think I said that last week too. So, but what happened? The Vikings started feeling, wait a minute, blocked the punt. It's
like, okay, we're going to puff 4th down stop. You know what? Let's dial up a shot play here too. Why not? Let's go for it.
Well, you start feeling like we could win this game. You don't want the Rams feeling that.
Thanks, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Appreciate all the everydayers out there. Welcome to all the new listeners. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. And don't forget, for your second listen, one of any of the number of 200 podcasts here on the Locked On Podcast Network, including the Peacock and Williamson NFL show, the new Locked On NFL, Locked On Fantasy, if you want to get ready for your fantasy leagues, all of it on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Croc and I back post-game to break it all down right here. Locked On 49ers.